Hi everyone, good afternoon. How are you all? Hi, I'm so happy to be here in your city. Thanks for welcoming me. And today we're going to touch a topic which might be relevant to some of you. Are any of you high school students here, class 9 to 12, anyone? Oh, great, perfect. So you're in a stage of life where supposedly the most important decisions are being made. I'm sure everyone around you has an opinion on what to do, from your closest friends to your relatives. But through today's talk, we want to explore what do you really want. So what we want to understand is why be a follower when you can be an influencer, as social media call it, or as I call it, a leader. And here I'm just going to push you to think about how you can, step beyond your comfort zone, push your limits, and break any barriers that you see around you. So let's move on. Herd mentality. Has anyone heard about this term? Okay, so according to Wikipedia, what it means is when people typically try to conform to the thoughts and actions of a particular group just to try to fit in. That's what is called a mob mentality, herd mentality, or group thinking. Here we have a cartoon depicting why people use mob mentality. It's because they don't need to then think for themselves. It just reduces your cognitive load. But at the same time, if you're just following the herd, where does your individuality go? Who takes into account your strengths and your weaknesses in terms of building your own path? So today we're going to talk about what does it take to rise above the pack. And me being an ex-consultant, I'm going to break it down into 5 steps for you, and you can take in or leave things as you please. Number 1, we're talking about the societal norms. So you need to stop caring what people think. And when I say people, I mean these inconsequential people who have too much time in their lives, and that's why they have opinions on everything that goes around. And I can understand that it can be really difficult to set these notions aside. I myself have been victim to these. I was told by my mother that when I was born, some distant relatives came to the hospital and said that, oh, your daughters are a little bit dark, so you might have to spend more money in her dowry. And with that conception, you just have an inbuilt insecurity around you, which haunts you for life. And cut to my first year in America, where I was just roaming around in a departmental store, and a guard comes up to me and says, oh, I really like your skin color. I'm like, what? My skin color? I was a little mind blown, to say the least. And then I discovered that, these white people crave for some color on their skin. This is what the US self-tanning market looks like. They spend millions of dollars in gels, lotions, just to add some color to their skin. If you look at it, more than $200 million are spent, which is more than 1,600 crore rupees. Isn't that crazy? That's what the other side of the world looks like, whereas we think that you need to be fair to be lovely. So that's number 1. Let's move on. Number 2, so now we move on to the consequential people in your life. How to recognize your support system and make sure you talk to them and actively communicate with them. Obviously, you have your friends who, are a place where you feel safe and probably the keeper of your deepest, darkest secrets. But at this stage in life, your parents and your teachers are extremely valuable. So make sure you communicate your wishes, desires, interests, likes and dislikes with them. Typically, they are the ones who will lift you up and make sure you reach the highest possible goal that you set for yourself. I have been very lucky to have very, very supportive parents. I am the eldest child of the eldest children. So when I decided that I am going to step out of the country and pursue computer engineering, where typically what was happening in the previous generation was women getting basic education and then being married off, some heads were turned, so much so that a senior member of my family didn't talk to my mom for a year. But my parents still stood behind me and supported me in my decisions. I do think that our parents make a lot of sacrifices in life. So if you have your parents around you, or maybe today when you go back home, just write them a thank you note or say thank you, because as the stalwart Taylor Swift says, it really can be exhausting rooting for the anti-hero. So this is number 2. Moving on, we will talk about pushing boundaries and seeking diverse experiences. I really encourage you to be curious and to take risks, because unless you take these steps, you're unable to realize your full potential. And what I mean by that is, if you're a science student, take a sociology class. If you like arts, maybe try an interior designing internship. Or, you know what, travel and talk to a person that you've never spoken to before, because that will help you understand different perspectives. So I understand this can be really, really daunting. When I first stepped out of my house for boarding school at the age of 15, within the first 3 months, I called up my parents and I'm like, why have you sent me here? I think we had better teachers back home. I had better facilities available to me. So why don't you just come pick me up? And then I took a couple of days and be like, okay, maybe give me a month and we'll talk about this again. And I'm so glad I decided against going back, because it really was the start of my journey. I stepped out of the city, then outside the country, and finally outside the continent, and that opened so many doors for me. So this is approximately what my journey has looked like. I have studied in 3 countries, worked in 5 industries, and probably been in teams with tens of nationalities with varied experiences, ages, and backgrounds. I have discovered so much. I have learned that in a team, I love to be the one setting up structure and processes. Just hearing people's diverse opinions and, based on the culture and the backgrounds they come from has made me a better listener and made me more open. And I've also discovered random things like social media websites use blue in their logos because that instills trust. So once you open the door for new experiences, you really don't know what's in store for you. For someone coming like me who was taught 3 different pronunciations of envelope, if she can stand in front of you and deliver a TEDx talk, I'm sure the possibilities are endless. Moving on, failure. I know a lot of you will probably be so scared of this word. And we do everything possible in our life to avoid any kind of disappointments or failures. But it's eventually meant to happen, because unless you experience some lows, how will you enjoy the highs in your life? I learned this pretty late. In 2016, I, at the age of 23, got into Cornell, the Cornell MBA program, getting into an Ivy League university at the age of 23, when the average age for the business school program is 28. I just was like beyond words. I was on cloud 9, unaware of like what was in store for me and what struggles lie ahead. As Nelson Mandela rightly said, the greatest glory does not lie in never falling, but just in terms of rising after every fall that you have. He was a very smart guy. He led a movement to, fight social justice, so I'm sure we can give him some credit. Also, this is what social media has taught us, that life is an onward and upward journey full of happiness. So I'm just going to use a typical Instagram versus reality meme to tell you that Actually, life is a comedy of errors, so just get ready for whatever's to come. Anyway, coming back to my story. So I entered the university. I excelled at studies. I graduated with distinction. I was in all extracurriculars you can think of. I still am on the Cornell homepage. My face is still there. But I was unaware that because I was not average, I had to clear a higher bar. For the job market, I was competing with my peers who had up to 8 years worth of more experience than I did. And we both graduated from the same school, DPS RK Puram, but one was 8 years older than me, and we were both sitting in the McKinsey interview together looking at each other like, yeah, I know what's gonna happen here. Anyway, I struggled my way through it, literally worked my socks off, and got a job in an industry of my choice. But so much so that what destiny had in store, it had already decided. The Trump administration refused to give me a visa. And trying to protect my self-confidence and self-worth, I decided to come back, which turned out to be a much better decision given what came after, which is the pandemic. So I was really happy that I was able to be with my family during that time. But sometimes life takes turns, and in spite of all your efforts, you fail, not knowing what's in store for you ahead. So just take every failure with a pinch of salt and obviously learn from it. Number 5. So yes, we are at the final stage of these lessons. Number 5 is just to be kind and enable others. I am a big believer in building a positive ecosystem. And I have seen empathy play out in front of me. Now, whether that be me saying thank you to the waiter at my neighborhood restaurant and him ending up remembering my order next time, or me just being curious about someone's profession and later realizing that he is a renowned neuroscientist who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. So I've just understood that kindness and empathy will go a long, long way. I have made sure I mentored my friends, family, and the community around me. But last year, I took the decision of quitting my job and doing this full time. So now, this is what I do. I teach practical skills at schools, ranging from how to tell your story to how to build your own venture. And the idea is to provide mentorship to students so that they can, further build a path for their higher education and they achieve their goals. So these are some shots from my first workshop, and this is the feedback I received. And life comes a full circle. If you're being kind, the universe will empower you. As a millennial reading a Gen Z saying that, they really like my vibe, I feel I did my generation proud. Obviously, as you can see, they learned something about entrepreneurship as well. But to me, that was the highlight of my experience. So all I want to say at the end of the day is it's important for you to find your voice, write your own story, and build your path. And while you do that, just inspire others, break barriers, and make sure you build a world where everyone can embrace their own individuality and don't be scared to be yourself. Thank you. I'll just leave you at it.